Hi gang, this is Eric White. This is another screencast in this series of screencasts on writing recursive pure functional transforms of XML. And in this screencast, I'm going to discuss a particular technique or a particular pattern for transforming elements that need a fairly complex transform. You probably could infer this particular technique or this particular idiom from the previous screencast, but it's worth discussing in its own right. There are a couple of points that if you understand these points, then these types of transforms are easy to write. Let's look at this document here. Let's say that our job is to transform every paragraph except for the title paragraph to a style, and we want to transform it to this style up here, Eric's style. Now, this is one particular scenario for using this type of transform, but you'll find out that this particular scenario or this particular issue of transforming an element in a complex fashion, it comes up fairly often in lots of different contexts. So if we talk about it in this context, then you'll be able to generalize and extrapolate and apply this same approach to lots of other scenarios. So let's go look at the markup for this. I'll show you what can make this just a little bit tricky, but then once you know a particular technique, this becomes a trivial transform to write. Here is the markup for that document that I just showed you. I've cleaned up the markup just a bit. I've removed the RSID attributes just to make it easier to see exactly what's going on. You can see that this first paragraph is styled with the style of title. The second paragraph has the style of heading 1. The third paragraph here does not have a paragraph style. However, one of the runs in that paragraph has a character style emphasis on it. And this fourth paragraph, it has neither a paragraph style nor a run style. So how to write this transform? I'm going to leave this open while we write the code so it's as easy as possible to understand exactly what's going on. I'm going to create a new project. It'll be a Windows console project. I've put it into the directory that I'm interested in putting it into, and I'll name this project Set Paragraph and Character Styles. First thing I need is I need my PT util and PT OpenXML util, so I'll add some existing items and add those to my project. And I also need the document format.openxml assembly and also need the Windows base assembly. I need my system.xml.link, and I also need document format.openxml.packaging and OpenXML Power Tools. Just to remove one level of indentation, I'll get rid of the namespace on this simple little example that we're going to make. There we've written our code in the main function to do the transform, to call the transform. Let's generate a method stub. And as usual, let's change this so that it returns object and so that it takes an X node. And let's write our identity transform. So now we're all set up to write our transform. First thing we're going to do is we're doing this transform based on whether we're looking at one of the paragraphs that we have to transform. So let's test to see if we have a paragraph and if it is a paragraph other than the title paragraph. So looking at this code, this is This is sometimes where I use a different formatting approach where I string these vertically instead of making a super long line that often is easier to read. What this says is, first of all, if we're looking at a paragraph and if the style of this paragraph is not equal to title, and this uses that idiom where we're using the extension methods in such a way that this code can't fail. We talked about this extensively in a previous screencast in this series. So now that we have determined that we are in a paragraph where we want to set the paragraph style and the character style to Eric's style, let's write that code. So we know we're in a paragraph, so we can new up a new paragraph. We know we're in a paragraph, so we don't even have to use the element.name. We know element.name is equal to w:p. And we can pull in any attributes. I call element.attributes, and that pulls in all of the attributes of the existing w:p element. Now we need to put together the PPR element that is going to go into this new paragraph. And there are a couple of different cases. There might not be a PPR in the existing paragraph, or there might be a PPR and it might not have a paragraph style, or it might have a paragraph style. So let's go right up here and let's new up a new PPR. And in this PPR, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in all of the child elements except for the P style element. So what I've done now is I've newed up a new PPR, and I've taken all the child elements of that PPR except for where the child element is equal to P style. And now I can just add a new P style. So now I have a PPR that has everything in the existing PPR except for the P style child element, and then I add my own P style element. Now you'll notice something. The observant among you will notice that I might have changed the order of these elements because the P style might be ahead of some other elements in that PPR in the source. And when this gets done, the P style is going to be at the end of the list of elements. Now, fortunately, word processing ML and Word is pretty forgiving about the order of elements. Now, that's not the case with Excel, but we're not working with Excel, so it doesn't matter. So now I have my PPR as I want it. So I just add it into my new paragraph. And now we're going to take all of the child elements of the existing paragraph and shove them through the transform. So now we have taken care of that for the paragraph. Just to make things consistent, I'll change this formatting to this vertical style of formatting. Something like that is my preferred method of formatting. And now we need to write the transform for the run. I'm going to do the exact same approach to put together my run properties before I new up the new run. So there I've pulled in all of the child elements of the source RPR except where that child element's name is rstyle. And now I'm going to put in my own rstyle. When I created this style, Eric's style, it's actually a linked style, so I can use that same style name both for a paragraph style and for a character style. Pull in the attributes, pull in our run properties. Now you'll notice I'll take those children of that run and shove them back through the transform because that run might contain a text box, and that text box might also need the exact same transform to be applied to it. We're almost done here. Upon looking at this a little bit more, one thing that I realized is that if we see a paragraph and that paragraph is the title paragraph, then that's going to fall through to this identity transform, and then the runs of that title paragraph will get caught by this transform, and that's not what we want. We don't want the runs of the title paragraph to take on Eric's style. So I'm going to rewrite this very slightly. I'm going to say that if it is a paragraph element, and then I am here going to say if. So now we have the code such that it says that if we don't have a title paragraph, it runs through this transform. And if we do have a title paragraph, then I'm just going to return element. And what this does is that this tells it that we're going to take that existing title paragraph and we're just going to put it into the new tree completely untransformed. We're not going to transform any of its attributes, and we're not going to transform any of its children nodes or children elements. Now it will clone this element. This is due to the cloning versus attaching behavior of linked XML, that when you add content to a new element, if the existing content is an X element, and if that X element doesn't belong to another tree, then it will simply attach that element to the tree that we're newing up. However, if that existing element belongs to an existing tree, as this element right here does, then what it does is it will clone that element exactly and then add the cloned element to the newly cloned tree. And we're done. Now we've written our transform. We have our test.docx here in the same directory where the executable is going to reside when we're done. So let's go ahead and run that example. It runs very quickly. And now let's look at it, format the XML. And up here, we can see that the title paragraph went in without any modifications, as it should have. Now look here, I've got a bug because I've newed up the paragraph element, and this paragraph element now has two PPR properties. Down here we have the run, and it has the run properties, but I've got the exact same problem down here where I had the run with the character style of emphasis on it. So let's go back and take a look at our source code and see where I made the mistake. I can see exactly where the problem is. So right here, I'm newing up the new paragraph element right here, and then I pull in the attributes right here, and then I pull in my new paragraph properties right here, and then I pull in all of the children of that existing source paragraph. And what I have to do is I have to add a filter right here. And I'm going to pull in all of those elements except for the PPR element. And I have to do the exact same thing here. And now when I run it, I see exactly what I wanted to see. The title paragraph is not modified as we wanted it to be, nor is the run under the title paragraph. The paragraph following that, it has a paragraph style of Eric's style. It also has a run property of Eric's style. Below that, the following paragraph also has a paragraph style of Eric's style, and the first run has a style of Eric's style, the second run also does, and the third run also does. And then finally, the final paragraph in the document that had no styling on it previously now has paragraph properties and run properties where it sets the style to Eric's style. So we can come over here, we can look at our document, and we got exactly what we expected to see. If we look at Eric's style, we can see here that it is Arial, Unicode MS, and point size of 11, and that's what we get all the way through the document. And what we would find here is we could add other interesting formatting to either the paragraph or any of those runs, and that other existing formatting will flow through. So let's take a look at that. I'll restore my source document. Let's go in and look at it. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this paragraph and I'm going to indent it. So that's going to add additional styling information to that paragraph. Further, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to bold that run right there. That's going to be direct formatting of bold on it. I'll save the document and close. Let's come over here and let's look at our markup again now. The RSID attributes are back in there, but we'll just ignore them for the moment. Down here we can see that run, and in the run properties it has the B element, which indicates that that's to be bolded. And up here we have a paragraph with the paragraph properties of indentation, IND, set to 720. So now we can rerun our program. First of all, let's go look at the results of that. And you can see, sure enough, that second paragraph retained its indentation, and also that run that was bolded, it retained its boldness. And so you can see down here in this paragraph, when we created the new paragraph properties, we did set that P style element to be Eric's style, and also we pulled in that IND element. And when we come down here and we find that run that was bolded, it's right down here, we did set the run style to Eric's style, but that B element still flowed through. And this is the advantage of taking this particular approach to transforming the paragraph and run elements in that fashion. The key point here is you've got a paragraph properties element and you need to clone it. And you want to clone it except for one particular aspect of it, which is that we want to set the P style to Eric's style. So the approach that I take is I new up a new paragraph properties, and then I grab everything but the one that I want to transform, and then I new up the one that I actually want to have be exactly as I want it to be. That this approach of newing up a new element and then selectively taking pieces of the element that I'm cloning and selectively discarding certain pieces and instead substituting my own pieces. This is the approach that you can take to new up a new paragraph in this fashion. And then we can include those paragraph properties when we new up the new paragraph. And it's the exact same thing down here with the run properties, that we new up a new run properties element, and then I take everything in the existing run properties except for the particular piece, in other words, the R style, that I want to transform, or that I want to make it be exactly as I want it to be. I don't want to take the run style from the existing run properties. What I want to do is I want to create that run style to have the value of Eric's style, but I want to pull in everything else but that run style into my new run properties. And in this way, I've written a transform that is very forgiving to the kind of markup that you push into it. It'll take a paragraph that doesn't have paragraph properties, and it'll transform it properly. It'll take a paragraph that does have paragraph properties, and it doesn't have a p style, and it'll transform it properly. It'll take a paragraph that does have paragraph properties, and it does have a p style, and it'll transform that one properly. So what do we have here? We have, starting up on line 22, and we go down to line 72 approximately. So 50 lines of code that do that transform. And so what I often see is when I go back and look at old transforms that I wrote 2 or 3 or 5 years ago, I have to tell you, I can't remember what I did back then. But what I can do is I can look and I can see this particular pattern where I'm newing up a new paragraph properties. I'm grabbing all of the children of the existing paragraph properties except in certain situations, and then I'm adding the additional stuff that I want to add to the new paragraph properties, and then I include that paragraph properties in my new paragraph. This is the particular pattern that I wanted to discuss in this screencast. So that's all I'm going to cover now. Come back often to OpenXML Developer. Follow me on my blog at ericwhite.com. Follow me on Twitter at ericwhitedev. Take care.